They're not all there, Ron. Yep. Yep. Good afternoon. This Township of Selwyn regular council meeting of Tuesday, May the 9th, 2023 will come to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mishi, Sagag, and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to our First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. May we please have a moment of silence to observe that council staff and members of the public quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note that in the minutes. And we have our minutes of April the 20th, 2023 and April the 25th, 2023. Can I have a motion to receive those? Moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any discussion out of the minutes? Seeing none, we will go to our first deputation. Andy Mitchell, if you'd like to take the stand.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm joined by Kathy Francois, who is the director of our work, which so I want to begin by making the point that the seven themselves are very the result of a welcoming community and a very supportive community. So I'll start with a couple of thank yous. Let me direct that first council. Council Selwyn has historically always been council very supportive of the library in terms of providing resources and support. And so I just wanted to take a moment now. Staff have also stayed very supportive. I want to thank the main particular and the treasurer and secretary of the library board, and that's a significant amount of staff, of course, the team, folks who staff at library, all of the past network, and we're very, very we're also enrolling kids to know that led by 106 years old volunteers who work throughout our branches. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without that type of volunteers at the CNI. And of course, the general public who support of all the programs that we can do and utilize the library. All of them great thank you. So one way to think of ourselves is special place in a special community. And so our sort of underlying philosophy as an organization and board staff is that we are more simply a repository of law. The library is a community house where people learn, engage, and each other. So it's a community, the old community square concept or the library has like that. Today, there's just some of the in that slide just goes over some of the components that So, as you're aware, we have representation for branch in each of our 3 component communities, as well as we now have a paper space. So we've been able to continue servicing all of our wards through a physical space if we want to. On to the next slide, volunteers again, thank you. They allow us to have it way beyond what we otherwise would. So 160 volunteers, 11,257 volunteer hours in 2022. If you monetize that, it's the minimum wage. I think about to become in October, that's over $85,000. That's pretty significant. And they do a large number of activities within our branches in terms of circulation, programming, event support, cataloging, customer service. And they are also helping out in the makerspace and planning on to improve the both in the deck. And one of the things that we're going to do, I repeat this, if I didn't stand the invitation down to June 26th, okay. I know John has done this for several years, and so there was a concern with the able to do it well done. Well, the good news is Don's come back to do this for us. So if you'll read about another one of we're actually. There you see the next slide is our circulation comparisons, and so just a couple of things. We essentially returned to pre-pandemic levels, which is very, very 2020. And the other thing to know is the change in that circulation. There is more use of digital material in the housing. That's a trend. I think that we see many different, and it's true in terms of the library as well. So that's something that probably they're going to have ahead. That's something that I think about. So the next couple of slides are examples of some of the things that we do. So we have a significant amount of community adult programming. You know, some of the things events that we have. It's amazing how many people participate in that, and so those are a few of those, and a little bit of testimonials on that. And as you can appreciate, particular people of my vintage, some of the technological help that's provided is significant. I'm fortunate I still have a 16-year-old phone that's very fast that our library staff really helps out a lot for a lot of and then the next slide is about here we go. We have an extensive amount of children's programming, and they're just that's together. You see that, and there we have some testimonials from the children's programming. That's really just a sample. It really does land well with the community. I know that when I moved here many years ago, my 2 youngest were very young, and one of the first things that connected us to sell was the children's program for that. So that's it continues to be very, very important. We have our makerspace. That's the pictures from our grand opening, and that was it's a very innovative, future-oriented, unique offering from our library. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that in addition to all the township support, the province of Ontario through the Trillium Foundation also supported that mission. And the next 4 slides is just about some of the things, some of the examples of the kind of programming that we partner with the community. So the Makerspace, the Pollinator Garden, and the Municipal Library, right on the chance. Our community care partnership, we work with them. The Literary Festival, we've partnered with them as well. And so those are some of the ways that we're innovating in the community, and we're always looking for and willing to participate with new partners. So the final slide is what's next. So as a board and as staff, and indeed at some point council, we need to be thinking about what the focus should be going forward. And so we're asking ourselves a few questions. How will we serve the growing population? So is growing. More people are finding that what a great place to live, and they're moving here, and the library is an important part of that. How do we keep our volunteers engaged? Have that many, and they're so important to our operation. We want to make sure that they're engaged, that they feel that they're appreciated, and that we honor their service to the community. I mentioned this briefly earlier, the balance between this digital and physical collections. So, and it's interesting, some people use digital exclusively, some people are not so comfortable with it, and still want the physical collection, but we need to have an understanding of the trends in that respect. We're growing the makerspace. That is a unique and innovative approach. It really does add to our offerings, but it can be labor intensive on the staffing side, and there's lots of future opportunities. So that's something that we need to think about. And then just in general, new partnerships. We recently just signed a partnership with the Peterborough Library, so that we can teach that both community collections for it. So that's something that we've done, and we're always looking for new opportunities. So that, Madam Mayor, is the quick overview, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but if I can, I'll try to come up with that.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to reiterate for council's edification that it's unusual for a municipality of our size to boast 3 library branches. And I have mayors in other townships ask me how the heck we do it. One of the ways that we've been able to do it is the relationship, as you have mentioned, between council that has continued on for years with staff, both at the library and our staff here at the township. And we've always been supportive, and I've heard that this is unusual across the province. It doesn't happen other places. So we're lucky to be able to continue that on. Our volunteers are also a very strong cog in the wheel. Sarah can attest to that. Our numbers are, again, unheard of in other municipalities. I happen to live in an enclave where people have moved here from various locations, Renfrew, Waterloo, the GTA, and I know that a lot of them have joined the libraries in various branches as volunteers. It was a good way they felt to get immersed into the community. And I think as the township, as we grow, we will grow with our wealth of volunteers too. So I want to thank you for continuing to stay on the board because we had quite a change out after this last term. And again, thank you to everyone that's involved. And I'll now open up for questions. Councillor Boyko.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Andy, for this presentation. It's terrific. I am a big supporter and regular user of the library branch, the Lakefield Library branch. In fact, I had my 8-year-old granddaughter last week doing the maker space, and Heidi was spectacular with her as she made this T-shirt that made me roll my eyes a little, but it was terrific. She loved it. She loved the experience. I have 2 questions for you, if I could. The first, I'm looking at the financial summary for 2022, and Lane's not here, so I'll go through you. It says from reserves, in revenue from reserves and reserve funds, $59,000. Should this be a concern? Is this a regular occurrence? Does this raise any issues of financial challenges in the library? Yeah, $59,000 from reserves.
Through you. Yeah, sorry, without Lane, I can't say for certain if it's a huge concern. He hasn't mentioned it to me previously, so I don't think it's something that he's really concerned about, but I think Janice might be able to speak a bit to it.
Sure, I'll just add to that.
Yeah. no.
That line, what part of what that would be accumulated revenue that's flowing in and out of the department. So that would be one component. But also if there were capital projects where they were being funded by reserve, that's where you would see that money flowing into the budget to cover those capital expenditures. So I don't believe that we have, it was thanks, Andy. If you look on the other side.
Yeah.
There was $52,316 worth of capital expenditures. So
Yeah.
that helps.
So, right. So this can't be interpreted as the library facing financial challenges, which I wanted to make clear.
No.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're
The
welcome.
second question involves the makerspace. When I was at the Roma conference with my colleagues, I took time to speak to somebody from the Ontario Library Board, and she was telling me, not board, association, telling me that makerspace operations are becoming increasingly popular, not just Ontario, but across Canada. And I was so happy to boast that we have one in Selwyn. And I noticed on your fifth bullet of the future, the growing the makerspace. Would you see it growing in the physical space in Lakefield, or growing in terms of operations and what's available, or taking it to other branches? What do you mean by growing the makerspace?
Well, I think growing in the first instance is different types of offerings that we're able to take things. That's why growing in the sense of having the public be comfortable in and so growing the number of users that we have. At some point in time, I think this is probably but growing it right now means let's expand what we do there. Let's make it
Excellent. It's a tremendous space. Mind blowing, some of the technology that is there for people of our vintage, as you said. Thank you so much.
Deputy Mayor Black.
Yeah, thank you to you, Mayor Sinis. Thanks for the presentation, Andy and board and Sarah. I think it's great. The volunteer hours are tremendous. When you think of it in this day and age, it's a challenge to get volunteers out. So obviously you got a good product and a good space that they want to come to. And as the mayor said, we have a lot of folks coming to the community to live there as our population is growing dramatically. So I think we've got a good opportunity to gather some of those volunteers. The change in usage is very interesting. Obviously, move to more digital, that sort of thing, and hopefully that attracts younger volunteers as well. The fact that I know my kids never buy a book anymore; they buy the digital version and they read that way. So I think that's an opportunity. You ask questions about where we should grow. I think the digital side is really the future, and I think it will attract younger folks to help volunteer. And in fact, when the makerspace opened, I met one of your young volunteers, one of your tech volunteers there that day. So it was great to see somebody in their 20s volunteering at the library. Very unusual. So just congrats on the whole thing. I think it's a great organization you're managing there, and the volunteers have seem to be really happy to put their hand up and help out. So congratulations.
Thank you. Councillor Koulis.
Two-part question for you. When those numbers are really high, and that's great for volunteers, was it volatile, or did you have any struggles during COVID? And then the second part to that is, does that impact your question about how do we engage them in the future?
well, we did, as did everyone, for periods of time we were shut down altogether. And for other periods of time, we had significant restriction in terms of the way you I think our volunteers were a microcosm of society at large. And is always a priority of the board before, and it is today, and that's the safety of our staff and our volunteers. And I think most of our folks are coming back now and they're feeling more comfortable, but we're always achieving the individual.
Through you. Yeah, definitely COVID had some impacts on our volunteer model. We lost, I would say, around 20 to 25 volunteers overall. Some just weren't comfortable coming back, and they just weren't comfortable with our system, our technology. After that point, we were able to recruit a lot of new volunteers, but I think the issue that we might face moving forward is the fact that they're just volunteering in a different way. They're not necessarily like right now we have scheduled shifts for volunteers, like they are dedicated to a certain shift every week. And we're just seeing more of like that project-based volunteering, I think is something that we're really keeping an eye on right now.
Speaking to other pieces that we're going to discuss today, such as the fundraising strategy, I'm really interested in your volunteer strategy because that might help inform that strategy too. If it's working for the library, we have a number of nonprofit organizations who really struggle to find volunteers after COVID and they're still struggling. So sharing the information, that kind of resource would probably be helpful if possible.
All right, if there are no other questions, I just want to comment. I also am a very large user of the library. I will never use the digital. I have to look at a computer far too long in a day, and my form of relaxation is to read. So I like the physical book. So that's one of the reasons I'm on the board. I'm going to keep pushing that message. And all I'm asking for is more large print. So my personal preference. Anyway.
And the work that you make is really, really good point. Try to make sure that the library is there to service a wide range of needs and desires.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I am looking for someone to move to receive it. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Boyko, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you again. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, we are now going to hear from Chris Kowalik from the City of Peterborough on social services, community safety and well-being plan and the hub program. And yeah, make sure you speak into the mic, Chris.
Mayor and council, appreciate the opportunity to tell you today. On top of those two items, also presenting a bit of an overview of social services. Probably more so for councilors here today. So I apologize in advance about that. Try to go through this rather than presentation. And would you like image on the front more for the hub as part of the presentation? So on the social services side, this will be the first number of slides, bit of an overview of the social services division and the role of the service system manager that the city of Peterborough plays for the city and the county in relation to children's services, Ontario Works, housing and homelessness, which means these bullets here that we do system planning, coordination for community partnerships, funding for services and community programs, program administration, direct and shared delivery of services, programs, policy development, and best practices. Programs that we are designated to serve or to services as the system manager are around children's services, stability supports, which you can think of the Ontario Works program that is still folks that are in crisis or safety measures, health interventions, life skills, and community supports. On the housing side, we're responsible for approximately 1,800 units, and we found 1,500 rent years. The homelessness side, it's the emergency shelter, supportive housing, and homelessness division. Our role in the municipality will provide support referrals to anyone who wants to either over phone or physically in our office. Our city of stability support can vary from simple referrals to specific resources with various agencies community to longer term ongoing relationships, frequent follow-up clients. In addition to our office on Charlotte Street and Charlotte News, and we have established the hubs across the county. The ones that we directly deliver are on social assistance, being Ontario Works, disability support, emergency assistance, discretionary health benefits, housing stability funds, and various rent supplements in Canada Ontario housing benefit, child care fee subsidies for children and social fee referrals. These two are in my domain, the Homemakers program, community development program, which includes the HFM in Peterborough, the safety well-being plan, connections to the county and the house program, and I would add food security to that list as well. We'll do homeless outreach, housing waivers applications. On the housing program side, is that rent here to income, the wait list for rent here to income, rent supplements, and housing benefits, housing stability fund, manage the develop the 10-year housing and homelessness plan, and affordable housing development. So, homelessness side, it's around the emergency shelters, support shelter services, and the overflow, supportive housing services dedicated to experiencing homelessness. These are found at the Broad Mission, Cameron House, Leaders, developed by or building, and just scattering of other units across the city. Rent supplements, housing and homelessness, coordinated access system, defining priority list, people experiencing homelessness, record outreach, case coordination with other agencies. And the way our office is set up is through these integrated social services teams. So we have intake and referral team and a group of workers there. We have client service workers, loans, expanders, terminologies change over time because the roles shift. So they do some intake, but the life stabilization team, we have 3 of those in the client service worker field. We have 1 team of program integrity workers, administrative team, finance team, and demonstrate our flexibility in supporting clients by meeting clients the best way that meets their circumstances. Province is definitely pushing a digital first approach, pushing everything online as much as possible. But when folks that are dealing with serious issues and have high acuity in a number of areas, we'll meet them wherever they can, whether federal, phone, text, email, virtual, in person, or to provide that providing as very supports. We will discuss system barriers for clients to referrals, collaborate with local organizations, that are not directly responsible for a lot of education, healthcare provider, health services, education services. Lastly, on the children's services side, we manage the CWEL, which is the Canadian Canada-wide that already challenges. That's in the works ever since it was announced. I've still been reported by the service manager for 61 operators in the city of county, and referrals for subsidies, children, parents. The most common referrals are to 5 families. Children's aid. Also referrals for part-time care and even other referrals eligible and school and access to the website. So if I were to social services there very high level. And we're need for more detail in any of those areas. So, community safety and well-being plan. It's a mandated plan which I provided on the development day. That every municipality has adopted these plans. You, the city, and the county adopted it back September, August of last year. And the way we framed this with purpose was that it was a safe place for everyone to see. Our community with the goal of to address community priority risks with proactive integrated strategy that ensure more vulnerable populations receive right now from the right providers. And the change that we're looking for is working together in new ways to address safety and well-being issues for residents. All of the residents. The time frame we took for creating this plan, we did start before the pandemic in February of 2020, and city, county, and all the townships, all the police, health, EMS got together and agreed to do a joint plan at that time. I was on RFP at the time, I hired a consultant firm, and the pandemic hit, deployed, and we started the work on this in November of that year. Pulled together an advisory committee, submitted an internal plan to the province because we did miss a number of deadlines on this, as many other Ontario municipalities did. And it was, as I mentioned, July and August that we adopted the plan. Just this past March, the county councils approved an implementation strategy, which included the development of the leadership table, which I'll get into. These are the 5 priority areas that the plan identifies around homelessness, healthcare, mental health, poverty and income security, substance use addiction, transportation. There are strategies in the plan divided amongst these 5 priority areas that have been vetted and endorsed by agencies and the advisory committee to work forward or to work towards. So on the implementation side, the leadership table is intended to be representatives, high-level staff representatives from local agencies who have an impact or are connected to those 5 strategies. So I'm working on recruiting people onto this table at this time. Almost had it solidified in the first week of the summer. So we're starting to see the CAO. County CAO was agreed amongst the townships that she would contact them. Trying not to make this table too big, but officer of health, police chief, those are the types of folks and representatives from each of those sectors as well. Mental health, drug strategy, way on the poverty side. Social services. So that's the kind of, to give you an idea of the leadership makeup. And it's meant to feed up priorities to this group as the clear mandate of this plan is to work across sectors to help solve the problems that we're dealing with. It's a 4-year plan. It is locally funded, develop or implement the plan. They've identified alignment with community safety and well-being plans and some of their grant applications. But it is looking locally how there are resources differently across sectors to address issues. It's clear and mandate part of this developments. There will be ongoing annual reporting. City council to provide updates on this plan, and there will be an online dashboard tracking various aspects of the plan to look at progress, data, factors. Consultation, it will be more on specific issues related to the plan. Annual consultation, probably full consultation on the plan in 4 years, but certainly there are various things that go on which to how factors here to tie back to Staff support for this is through myself. Staff being assigned to this. Funding for the role towards supporting local needs and services. So on to the hub program. So hubs have been around and we didn't know by any means, and there are a variety of reasons. I listed a few here. The benefits of having hubs that we are developing, improving access to services, service delivery options for agency living and transportation costs and barriers, new technology barriers. Which may not have smartphones or the Wi-Fi or the bandwidth to have team meetings or virtual meetings, provide services in local communities, increasing the likelihood of accessing services because no shows or anywhere very high. I think when it's in Lakeville, most of them or the surrounding area, much higher. And then agencies connecting with the local communities, they will understand the lay of the land. We're doing outreach prior to the pandemic. Since 2011 up to 2020, we did have staff outreach municipality. I think we're at 3 days a week serving clients itself and also staff. All the other townships, dedicated staff, delivering service there. We changed our operating model, so now any of our staff could have a client that sell it, so we don't have dedicated staff outreach. So we have to change the way we're planning. I started during the pandemic to set up those offices again that we'll go through to get the website and places like other locations, but it evolved as part of the safety and well-being and try to develop a model that opens up to any services. So as I mentioned in the next slide, that this is one of the goals in the safety and customer outreach. So the way this system works, it's an online system. And at this point in time, it's really agency driven. So that when organization has the client, whether it be services or whether it be a mental health or addictions or something related to children's aid or sexual assault setting, the agencies have already registered to use the space. It's driven by them then using the space here. It's not a place where clients go to Vigilant and say, hey, I want to acquaint somebody. At this point in time, we're just going through agents with existing clients. So we did a soft launch back in December and announced the backlog in Lakeville. We got an official launch on April 3rd. Backlog, 12 agencies registered. And as part of the process, those hosts in each location, so that agility, they have control over the calendar that we use. So these are the locations. 10 of them with Buckhorn coming on soon that are at the health center. Next slide, please. All right. So I will encourage you to visit the website. That's case/hubs, and you can see menu of locations and what agencies, the registration form. There's a user manual there, and gives an overview of the locations, images. Many people wouldn't necessarily need to go to Agility for anything, but don't know where they're sending their staff. And then the bookings calendar, which is the one that we provide agencies, so they can use that to book space at the Agility office or community care and answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Chris? I actually, oh. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thanks for the presentation, Chris. And this book is fantastic source of the demographics and statistics for the county and the city. And one of the things that's very notable is the change in population and the growth. In the last census, the city grew by 6.2%. The county grew by 11.9%. And there's only about 19,000 people difference between the city and county, and the county pays a portion of social services costs across the county and the city, of course, and it's based on population. So increasingly, the county is paying more as a percentage of the social services budget for those services. So it's great to see that place like Lakefield is there's an opportunity for those services to be provided locally. And I think, as our population grows, and this really doesn't represent the full impact of COVID because it goes to 2021. Many more people have moved to their rural properties as well. So as that population grows, and we have a lot of younger families coming to rural properties because it's cheaper to live in some cases. So we have growth in the younger population and also in the senior population. So having those services provided locally, I think there's gonna be a lot more pressure from the county side of it as far as providing those services. So I think this is a great start, and congratulations on getting it up and rolling.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I have one for you. I don't mean to put you on the spot. This is to do with the services. Despite the fact that we now have $10 a day childcare, there is a long wait list, which is like years long. Are you aware of any new childcare spaces that are going to be made available?
I am not aware. Reach out to the children's services.
Okay, again, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's just it's a big concern for a lot of parents. Some people are putting their name on the list before they have the baby now. So anyway, thank you very much for your presentation. I look for a motion to receive it. Councillor Koulis, seconded by Councillor Henry. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much again. Thank you very much. All right, we have next Strexer Harrop, and we are going to be hearing from both of you, or just
me. Getting up on you. So I'm just on you, Fran, and I'm with the Strexer Adrian Harrop, and we are co-founders of Strexer Harrop.
All right, and you're going to be speaking to us about
fundraising and revenue generation strategy. This is an initiative last summer funded through the Trillium Foundation to help your community, both nonprofits and the municipality itself, increase some revenue opportunities that's not non-tax based. So we'll shortly finish. Oh, so okay. All right. Is that better? Great. Okay. All right, so the project overview fall of 2022 to research opportunities to increase non-tax-based revenues for the township and to assist nonprofit organizations in their fundraising efforts. As we heard earlier, the collective power of our volunteers in this region is immense, and we want to help make their lives a little easier. And it's a wonderful initiative that the took to try to help those nonprofits do more with less. So we did a number of stakeholder engagement consultations. We did public surveys with staff, with nonprofits, with businesses. We interviewed staff and nonprofits, and we did a number of stakeholder consultations. We also did a benchmark analysis of 9 peer municipalities to compare your rates of things like ICE rentals, facility rentals, sponsorship, just to see if there was an opportunity where you may be able to increase your revenue in some areas that you may not have considered in the past. And we reviewed some best practices. And so the final strategy has 28 recommendations. We're not going to go through them all. We're just going to give you a quick project overview today. So through this project, we found 3 main strategic priorities for your municipality. One is internal support, so supporting your staff on making the processes easier. Revenue growth, so then these were actions that would help increase revenue for the municipality, and becoming a nonprofit advocate, helping share all of the great work that they do and help provide resources to those nonprofits that need a little boost, but not financial boost, but just some mentoring and some resources that are available to you. So for general government, we are recommending that you develop a communications plan to promote the township facilities, programs, and nonprofits. And I get the monthly newsletter, and I noticed that every single month now you're promoting a different facility for rent, and it's fantastic. Adrian and I, when we closed our main office in downtown Bridge North, we rent the Bridge North Library once a week for our team meeting. So that's some revenue that's coming to the municipality as a result of that. Purchasing a mobile POS, so that's your payment system for the library, for events, for makerspace. We are renting the space in the library, but we don't have checks, so it's very difficult for us to pay for our space rental. So we're recommending that you have a POS system so that more spaces can take revenue, and look at introducing new rates for 2024, and those are in the full report. Some recommendations, obviously, we'll work with staff and the departments on those. We've just given recommendations based on your municipalities. The fire department design and sell merchandise. This is not t-shirts. We don't want anyone saying that they're from the fire department. This is more, I support the volunteers. Just some opportunities for them to raise the money. There's some examples in the final reports, water bottles, tote bags, those types of things. Provide the communications coordinator with some social media content. So there are a number of fire department initiatives, and just making sure that they have the information in advance when they know Fire Prevention Week, fire alarm safety testing, letting people know. I know when I first moved to Salmon Township, I think I was only there a week, and a fire truck showed up at my house. I'm, oh dear, what's this? Then they, we test your fire alarms for free, right? So giving people a heads up that that's happening, so they know when the fire truck shows up what they're coming for. And streamline the liquor license application process. So one of the areas that when we were doing the peer review and talking with department staff, there's actually 2 processes that a business has to go through, or someone has to go through to get the liquor license. So staff will undertake a review to make that a little more streamlined for the applicant. Parks and Rec, to align with your marina utilization study that was completed last year, develop a business plan for some sort of a vendor park at the marina to make it more of a destination for people. Introduce new advertising opportunities and rates for 2024. So just some, again, best practices from other municipalities. And redevelop the Shamrock Festival, Lakefield Jazz Arts and Craft Festival sponsorship program. And that's the materials that, as a business owner, that we get. We get bombarded by all of those programs, and it might be a great opportunity to streamline, as a business may want to sponsor all 3, or they may want to be their title sponsor, just knowing which events they can sponsor, because typically each festival is coordinated by a group of volunteers, and they may not know that someone has already been talking to a business for the Lakefield Jazz sponsorship opportunity. So it's just really just coordinating the effort and making that program a little more robust. Library, develop an annual fundraising plan. So again, lots of volunteers at the library, just helping them how they can make some more revenue, things like the awareness of the Causeway Treasure Trove and the Ennismore Thrift Shop. COVID, those hours were reduced or eliminated, and that's a significant amount of revenue. So helping develop a plan so that the volunteers can once again make some money at those locations, and then just communicating with the public. It is a trend right now to shop at secondhand stores for sustainability reasons and also the rising cost of inflation. So this is a huge opportunity for the library and for the municipality to raise some revenue. And then Grant Connect is a program. It's an online database that through this project you have acquired a license so that you can then share that license at the library branches where a business or nonprofit can log in, see what grants are available to them. And what's really important, and we have this in the toolkit, not in the final report, there's an attachment for you, the toolkit. Part of applying for grants is to see what other organizations have been successful in getting so that you understand what the funders' priorities are. So the Grant Connect not only just has the list of dates when the applications close, but previous grant recipients. So you can do some research as to what is the average amount of the 25,000 and 50,000, and what does that grant provider typically find? It's capital, staffing. So the toolkit I just mentioned, so a number of things are there. The nonprofits, they have seen a draft and they were consulted extensively of what else they would like to see in this toolkit. They'll be able to download it, just take it and modify the information to meet their needs. One of the big pieces of it is a volunteer member attraction and recruitment tips and suggestions, and again, grant funding. Social media template for this thing as well. One of those of you that have worked with us before, you know that we are not big fans of writing reports and saying, see you later. We always try to work with the municipality to implement our suggestions, recognizing that resources can be strained everywhere. We're going to do more with less. And so as part of our proposal, when we responded to the RFP for this project, we included 100 additional hours for implementing some of these. So one of the projects that we are planning to work with the team on is to align a strategy for the marina utilization study, where it recommended some sort of a food truck vendor park, making that place a destination. So we'll be working with staff and stakeholders to come up with a strategy on that. Second one is to support nonprofits and businesses for about 20 hours. That's to develop 2 specific courses based on feedback that we received from them in the fall, and then actually a workshop in how to do this. So as opposed to just putting something out there, we'll have the nonprofits come spend time with us and we'll walk them through grant writing, we'll walk them through setting up Google Analytics, as opposed to just giving them another list of tips and suggestions that they can access on their own, but this is more of a hands-on workshop. And just some miscellaneous on-demand support, grant writing help, and marketing support to help with the strategy. And so we just listed all the people that supported this project. It's a wonderful community. We are both residents of it and business here, and all the nonprofits, stakeholders were fantastic with the project and very complimentary of the municipality and your support to them for this project.
All right, so thank you very much. And I will open it up to questions from council. Councillor Koulis.
Through you. So thank you for your presentation. One thing that you keep saying over and over is doing more with less. And I recognize that this identifies different initiatives or adding new arms to things that we're already doing. More so to like save money or to make money in certain places. But my question is, how is this going to impact our staff? Because the trend in public administration is that you cut costs and you add more responsibility onto people and you don't change their contracts. So is this going to hurt us financially in the long run for losing staff? Or are we going to have new hires? Are we going to do summer students? Because there's a lot of competition between the municipalities right now to get good workers. And when those are paying more at the county, we've seen them leave. So are we going to actually save more by putting more on the plates of our staff? That's my first question. And then the other, it's kind of linked into it. You note in the report that 66% of staff support this. What about the other third? What were the concerns there?
Okay, so with regards to the first question, so none of these recommendations are additional work for the staff. The idea is things like having a point of sale system, being able to tap or debit at various locations. It's less manual processing for staff. So everything that we're suggesting is to make everyone's lives easier. So there's absolutely no recommendations to add more work. And when, if you can think of one specific strategy where you think that maybe, we need to communicate better what that was, but definitely not extra intention of it. And then the stat, I'm not 100% sure which stat you were referring to.
For you. One of the reports, there's an infographic too as well that says 66% of staff support the idea of a fundraising strategy. And so I was wondering if there's the 2/3, what's the other third saying, or what were the, even if it wasn't direct support, what were the comments?
Okay, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I have to be, I don't have the survey results in front of me.
If you could get that for us, that'd be great. Thanks.
All right, so this particular report we will be receiving it. We will be dealing with the actual meat of the matter in 4B, just for my colleagues' information. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. Thanks for the report. Great deal of detail about different aspects of the township's operations and some great ideas. Question with regards to Grant Connect and your proposal to provide training, and will there be one-on-one opportunities for not-for-profits to come in and go through what grants are available and get some advice on which ones they might want to try? I think that's one of the biggest challenges for not-for-profit volunteer groups is trying to identify those grants, and somebody like your organization is very familiar with what grants are out there. Is that program going to have that opportunity for somebody to book an hour and come in and go through the program and see what might be available and then get some help putting the grant together?
I think that is a question for staff. Again, that would add to staff's workload to do that. But honestly, the Grant Connect program is very user friendly. You just type in where are you located, it has a filter, what is your cause, is it gravity field, is it housing, is it seniors, and it just sort of goes through a pick list and it lets you know if you're eligible or not. It is very, very user friendly. They also have online tutorials for the Grant Connect program. But yeah, whether or not there's a one-on-one opportunity, I don't know if that's something that a volunteer might be comfortable with and offering at their library, but I can't speak for staff or volunteers.
So so the 20 hours is just the training session that you're putting on?
Yeah, but we could do the Grant Connect where it would be a group workshop where they could learn how to use Grant Connect.
Yeah.
So absolutely that could be.
That's more what I was thinking about,
Yeah.
so they can help them identify as opposed to having staff do it as part of that workshop.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so we could set it up in that way where that session of the 20 hours with the one-on-one, helping them, okay, here are the 2 or 3 that you should apply for, and we can help you get started.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right, I see no further questions, so I'm looking for a motion to receive this report or presentation, sorry. Councillor Koulis is moving it, Deputy Mayor Black seconding, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you again to both of you. We are now moving into question period. Are there any questions? Don't see any of the public here, and there was nothing online. Okay. We'll move on to municipal staff reports, and Robert Kelly, you're going to be talking about the refreshment vehicle licensing update.
Yes, thank you, Worship. And through you, the report that I'm bringing forward today is put together by myself as well as the clerk. It's an update on the subject matter that we raised at the last meeting for the update of the refreshment vehicle licensing bylaw. We put the information out on our business e-newsletter, our website, and We sent it also additionally to all the current licensed operators in our municipality and it brought before you at our last meeting. And our report today summarizes the input that we received back with regard to the information that was put out. And included in the report is a general summary of that information. I'll run through some of the major highlights of it for you. Staff received positive feedback for the potential of additional food truck licenses on properties outside of the settlement areas. We received a request for clarification on refreshment vehicles at special events and impacts on traffic. And we've added an additional provision to the bylaw to account for refreshment vehicles at larger profit-based events. And that includes the requirements that food trucks meet all health and safety requirements such as health approvals, TSSA, insurance, road authority approvals, to ensure that any operators have a safe and approved vehicle for use at those events. We received a suggestion to include refreshment vehicles at the Lakefield Marina in the underutilized circular area. Council members had also provided feedback on the draft bylaw. Some of the issues that were raised was competition with restaurants permitting refreshment vehicles on municipal lands. And currently we permit refreshment vehicles for special events or for non-profit reasons. We did receive in the marina utilization study recommendations to create a food truck vendor park to support the visitor experience. As part of that fundraising and revenue generation study, we added some language to the proposed bylaw that will allow for refreshment vehicles on municipal lands under specific circumstances. It was another comment was raised about regulating vehicle appearance, and in the bylaw there is currently proposals on how to regulate the site with regard to waste collection and how the site is set up. There's a suggestion that potentially we could add a requirement that if the license applicants could provide pictures, both the interior and the exterior of the refreshment vehicles, which would help in determining if the food trucks would meet the requirements under all of the license requirements, whether the unit's structurally sound or it has its fire suppression units in good standing. And additionally, there was a comment raised with the use of portable generators to operate a refreshment vehicle. Now that was added, we added a clarification that that would only be a permitted use for a temporary event holder, not a season long or a annual license. As to next steps, council's asked to provide feedback today at the meeting related to the additional items in the draft refreshment vehicle bylaw. And should council endorse the draft bylaw, it suggested that we bring a final version back for the May 23rd meeting. And if you have any questions with regards to the report, I'm sure myself or the clerk could answer them.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Boyko?
Thank you, Mayor Sennison, through you. I would like to refer to point 3 in the report. Point 3 says suggestion to include refreshment vehicles at the Lakefield Marina in the underutilized circular area. That is the area, I assume, to the north of the building that is now bricked and with surrounded by gardens. I am opposed to that. I understand it's been said that the Marina Utilization Study Recommendations and Action Plan recommended that a food truck vendor park be established at the marina. I've looked through the recommendations that are posted online, and I must be looking at something wrong, because nothing that is posted online for the public to see do I see anything where it says that. I see number 5 where it says expanded food beverage retail sales, and point number 16, recommendation 16, extend hours of the marina's concession. And recommendation 17, engage local businesses and have them provide a wider range of food products at the marine concession. So I must be missing where it says that the report recommends a food truck vendor park. So first, and I will acknowledge that I find it a gaggle of vendor trucks. Being called a park is somewhat an Orwellian term. It suggests then that more than one food truck, in order to become a park, should be in that circular space. It's not big enough for more than 1 or 2, I don't believe. So I don't know where we get a park out of 1 or 2. And the Marina Utilization Study, if indeed it says there should be a park, must be then talking about not just that space, but all along the waterfront, since the study looked at the space called the marina all the way down to the canoe launch. So what we might be talking about then is having vendor trucks not only in that circular space, but all along the shoreline right up to the canoe launch. Perhaps that's what we're talking about. So I believe that any or of the options that I'm talking about, and any of them may or may not be what is being recommended, but I believe any refreshment vehicles at the Lakefield Marina, be it a park or one vehicle, is wrong, because I don't like the notion of people stopping to dine, if we'll call it that, from that vehicle, and not going to the food providers in the village of Lakefield, to whom I think we owe more loyalty than to a transient owner of a food vendor truck. I think we owe more loyalty on Thursdays to the farmers market, rather than a vendor who would be staging one of those trucks on public property. I believe it will negatively impact the aesthetics of the marina and the Lakefield waterfront as a whole. I believe it will cause unnecessary noise, mess, and parking problems. There are, of course, there is parking available at the arena, behind the arena. And we know that people are people, and therefore will stop at that corner and park their car while they go in and grab a burger and cause health and safety issues. It'll negatively impact our climate action goals by having one or more of those vehicles parked along there all summer long. It will block the gardens and cover the brickwork that tells the story of Lakefield's train and water history. It will destroy what is now a quiet and contemplative space. If we want to stop it from being underutilized, and I don't think that it is, then we could install some hedges. We could take better care of the gardens. We could cut back some of the overgrown shrubs and allow it to be better utilized. I don't believe it will in any way bring more transient boat traffic to the marina. We already have over many years long waiting list for boat slips, meaning that we don't need it to raise interest in having more people use the marina. The report suggests that it will generate revenue, but it doesn't project how much this revenue would be. And I don't believe that any revenue would justify the costs that I've noted above. So therefore, I will not be supporting this report while it has 0.3 in it, because I believe that those vehicles, those refreshment vehicles being on public property, any public property for a whole season or an extended period, not just the marina, but in the marina in particular, is wrong. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So you are saying that you don't want to support the report, the recommendation, We're just being asked to receive the information.
Yep. And
And we are being asked to provide input, which you just now given.
Right.
And that we will get a final draft on May the 23rd. Does someone from staff want to speak to the comments that have been made by Councillor Boyko? Angie?
I could try to respond to a few of the comments. So the actual term, the food truck park, that wasn't specifically a term used in the marina utilization study. Certainly, we did receive a lot of feedback through that study that people wanted to see more food offerings in that area. I think there's a recognition. We've heard for a long time that we do have a very nice waterfront, and it would be nice to be able to, enjoy some food or some beverages along the waterfront. So while that term wasn't used, that was the intention around it. So through the revenue generation study, that was identified as an opportunity to do some further investigation of a way we could incorporate some type of additional food and vendor offerings at the marina location. The protocol really would be to take a look at the space, see what could be accommodated in that area, what you would have to put in terms of an investment to provide the structures for something like that. The protocol would also take a look at, how would you make that opportunity available to local businesses? Would you have them submit proposals? Would you want to kind of think about, say you could fit, I'm just using this as an example, 4 units there. Would you want one to be a food vendor, one to be like a craft vendor, one to be an arts person? I mean, there's lots of different options. So I think the protocol would take a look at a number of those options. There are some examples, and Megan will go through those a little bit later when she does her report, that were identified in the revenue strategy. The city of Belleville has a pop-up area where they use like sea cans. I've seen in Halifax, down at their waterfront, they have essentially their sheds, but they're located there, and then vendors can come along and pay an annual rent, or you could make it available like on a weekend, or there's all kinds of different models. So that's the intention of the protocol. I know I'm getting into Megan's report a little bit, but I just wanted to explain the rationale behind it. So what we'd be looking for from council in terms of the refreshment vehicle bylaw, if council wants to make that option a possibility, we would want to include that in the refreshment vehicle bylaw to permit that. If you as a council don't want that to happen, then that component would be removed from the bylaw. So our intention today is to really get council to give us any feedback on the bylaw. And if there's clauses in it that you want added or removed, we'd like to hear your feedback on that so that we can bring the final draft back to council at the 23rd meeting.
So I intend to use the bylaw and go through it line by line and see if there are changes that any members of council would like to make, and they will be voted on. I want to make a couple of comments based on what Councillor Boyko has said. The reason that there's anything in here to do with having any food truck or pop-up tent at the Lakefield Marina is as a result of the Lakefield Marina study that was done last year. There were recommendations made, several of them, and past council did not make any decisions in a vacuum as a result of those recommendations regarding the Lakefield Marina. They were based on information provided to us by the consultant. The consultants conducted interviews, did workshops, sent out community questionnaires where 90 people responded, did voter questionnaires where 30 responded. The results were that most requested was to expand food and beverage services at the marina so that people can enjoy our waterfront. Food trucks and pop-up tents were mentioned. After the draft study, there was public review and commenting period. Mike, were there any comments against recommendations as they related to food being available at the marina?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we didn't receive any. As a matter of fact, if we look at a couple of comparables, when the Beaver Tails came in, it actually helped the other businesses because it drew more people. They weren't offering the same thing. Even Tim Hortons found that they had increased traffic on that weekend. And page 52 does have a bit more detail that Councillor Boyko might be looking at. It certainly doesn't use the word carcass as Ange said. It uses different terminology, but there's 3 bullets that all speak to finding some way to partner. It could be one of the local restaurants where you'd be supporting them more, and that is one of the options, so that they would have a waterfront location for 2 months, 3 months. I think it's really just trying to keep everything on the table and still addressing what was overwhelming from boaters, from retailers, and it isn't about competing, it's about enhancing.
Exactly. And I just have one other question, Robert. Were there any written complaints on the proposed refreshment truck bylaw? Have you received any written complaints from other restaurateurs that are in our area or anyone else?
Through you, your worship, we did not receive any written complaints. Most of the correspondence we received was supportive, and one of the pieces of correspondence was seeking clarity.
I'm sorry?
And one piece of correspondence was seeking clarity.
Okay, thank you. So we'll carry on. Councillor, our Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Senes. I completed the survey for the marina back when it was out, and I was one that said I really would like to have more food choices offered in the marina area or in the waterfront area in general. But a food truck vendor park was not something that I envisioned for the marina area. Having a single vendor there, like the Beaver Tails over a weekend, I think is an acceptable type of situation. But to have a permanent vendor park at $700 a year to do business for the permit, from what I understand, the new permit fee would be.
Sorry, just to clarify on the park idea, we would establish through that protocol what that rate would be. We wouldn't license them necessarily.
Okay, so it's not the current licensing. That's proposed
we would look at that differently.
as a different. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not something that I really envisioned when I answered that question. I envisioned more things like opportunities to either rezone property along the waterfront to restaurant, that sort of thing, for more permanent restaurant seating in the waterfront, or expanding something similar to what's at the Peterborough Marina, where they have the Lighthouse restaurant facility, and it's rented out to a local restaurateur to operate. It's got proper bathrooms. It's got, all the other services tied into it, but it's more of a permanent fixture that the township would rent out and have a little more control over, as opposed to those vendor trucks. So I'm not specifically opposed to having vendor food trucks on public property, but more for special events, festivals, not really as a permanent fixture. I do agree that they do draw people in. The marina, I'm not sure, is always the best spot either, because we can't really generate any more boat traffic. There's no dockage, a lot of public dockage for people to pull up in a boat unexpectedly or without actually booking the slip. Am I correct there? They have to book the slip, Mike?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we don't have a lot of
Yeah.
Monday to Thursday, but
On
largely
weekends?
Weekends, no, we don't have. Have a lot of, possibly, but no, not
Yeah.
nothing
So we're
significant.
not really going to attract boating traffic to that area. So The fairgrounds has got a great spot as well for something like this as an option to support the ag community as well. But something permanent with 3 or 4 food trucks, I'm not in favor of that sort of scenario.
Thank you. I'll come back
Yeah,
to you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. First off, I do need to address that in the past, I have been a food truck operator. I run a business that prepares food. My business that I have that prepares food is classified as a grocery store. And my last mobile food truck unit rig, whatever word we can be happy with here today, was sold just over a year ago. So I do not have pecuniary interest in this. However, I have a fair bit of experience in it. That noted, moving forward, we are here today just to agree on the draft and move forward. We're getting into a lot of really fine details because obviously there's some strong feelings and emotions here. My understanding is that this is to better our community. So let's look beyond Lakefield, maybe, or downtown Lakefield, sorry, the marina. Maybe the Lakefield Beach could have a food truck established at it. These are businesses that are only going to operate 3 to 4 days of the week if it's not raining. A food truck, wherever it's located in Selwyn, is not going to steal everyone's business. If you want a beer, you're going to go to a licensed establishment. If it's raining, you're going to want a roof over your head. Maybe you want to sit down, where a food truck does not always provide that. So I think we need to look at beyond possibly just the marina in Lakefield, and also consider different things that we can do here. We're talking about, well, some outsider coming in. Well, why don't we create an RFP process for this and weight the RFP on how much their local content is, or whether it's a local business. We have the power to control what does come in and goes out of here. Blue Mountain, for example, has 6 locations up for RFP right now in their community. Those go for $5,000 each a year. And they don't have them all concentrated in one area. They can spread them out. So I do believe that there are advantages into looking into this. We do need to discuss, I think, after we can get through the what we're looking at today, of how we're going to manage it afterwards. If that needs to be included in what we're doing today, so be it. But this can be done in a way that I think does enhance our community. As it is mostly in Lakefield, Lakefield has become very gentrified. Why do we go to Lakefield? Usually to eat or get our hair done now. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That's the way Lakefield's been evolving because of the demographic of people that we're attracting here. We have a specialty cake shop. There's a 12 places where you can buy dinner already pre-prepared. It is very food centric there. We have a farmer's market there. Bringing in a food truck is just one more aspect of that whole spectrum of food businesses that we have. And it's only going to operate for 3 or 4 months of the year, maybe 3 or 4 days a week if you're lucky. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I come back to you, John, I just want to mention that it's important for council to decide what direction you want to go, whether you want to see the ability for a food truck or pop-up tent or something at the Lakefield Marina, because it is going to determine what direction we go when we're making any changes to this draft bylaw. So keep in mind, again, even once we send the direction back to staff, a protocol would be set up to deal with how we deal with the food truck thing. I think it was a mistake using the word park, and that council will see and comment on that protocol before it's approved. So we still have control here when it comes to the direction we go with this. So I will now go to John and we'll proceed with the bylaw.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of responses to things that have been said. We indeed have been asked for our comments, and so that's what I think I'm delivering, and I don't think I'm being emotional in doing it. There's a couple of things that I've said that I think I'd like to repeat, not verbatim, but at least bring back to the discussion. And that is that the Marina Utilization Study Recommendations and Action Plan talked about, and I referenced number 5, 16, and 17, offering more food options at the marina. I am not opposed to that. I think it's a tremendous idea. I think Deputy Mayor Black has said the same thing. What I'm talking about is number 3 in the report that talked about food trucks that would be parked for a season. And I understand what Councillor Henry's talking about. It wouldn't be sitting there in January. It's going to be sitting there for a season. If we allow, and I won't reiterate all the reasons why I think that's a bad idea, despite the fact thinking that offering more food through our concession stand at the marina is a good idea. It's the refreshment vehicle that I'm talking about. With respect to, I'm also speaking about, and this goes directly to the bylaw, about refreshment vehicles on public land for an extended period of time beyond a simple jazz and art festival, the Shamrock Festival, those kinds of special events. Because I believe that we deserve to try, we should be enhancing our community through allowing those festivals to be as successful as they can and trying to draw more people to our community, as well as enhancing the enjoyment of the people who live in the community. So therefore, I would support something that said that with clearly stated stipulations that would allow refreshment vehicles on public property for short-term and specified times to support township sanctioned special events and for local charitable organizations to fundraise. And that the township will not grant licenses for refreshment vehicles at or around the Lakefield Marina or at any other public property. I wouldn't want, for example, the park by the library in Ennismore to have 3 or 4 food trucks on it all summer long. I don't think that would serve anyone. So I think that is what the point that I'm trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are going to look at the bylaw. So if you have it in front of you, are there any changes on the definitions? All right. Is there any changes to requirements for license? Councillor Boyko.
Through you. Yeah, I've raised this point, I think, last council meeting, and this is in no way casting any aspersions whatsoever on our bylaw enforcement officer. And I agree, I'm talking about number 3A. And I agree that the bylaw enforcement officer is the best person to inspect and to make sure that all of the rules and regulations are followed. Is it the belief of staff or council that the bylaw enforcement officer is the best person to look at a license application and to grant that application? I don't know.
Angie?
Yes, our bylaw enforcement officer, the job description includes licensing specifically. So that person does look at other licenses. So trailer park licenses, bed and breakfast licenses. Of course, those are the only others I can think about. Okay. But in any case, their job description is specifically required for them to manage our licensing program. Boarding our recent boarding licenses was added as another provision. So that person would be responsible for looking at every application, making sure they comply with the bylaw. It's no different than our building inspector looking at a building application, making sure it complies with the legislation. Robert doesn't sign all of those building permits. The bylaw inspector, or sorry, building inspector is responsible for doing that. It would be very similar to the bylaw enforcement officer.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Anything else from anyone else on requirements for license? All right. Regulations.
I guess my question, Mayor Senes, is 4A. And I agree with 4A, clause 1, 2, and 4, and clause 3. Is there a current protocol?
No, there's no protocol at this point.
So this is the protocol that everything that we've been talking about today will be informing.
That's
Yes.
correct. So we would want to understand from council. So really at this point, there is no approved protocol. So this actual clause really is meaningless at this point until a council approves a protocol. So if council wants to move forward with the development of a protocol, and this wouldn't just be for the Lakeville Marina,
No.
it would be for all township properties. So we would take a look at where those types of, whether it's a refreshment vehicle or a vendor. I don't want to use park. It's become a lot of work. But where those types of operations could take place in township locations, we'd want to maybe take a look at the locations. What could it accommodate? What could it accommodate more than one? What do you want it to be? Would it just be a refreshment vehicle, or could it be a combination of a vehicle plus a retail component? So I think if you want, you could go forward with that clause in there. And if the protocol wasn't approved, then it's really, we could take it out and it's meaningless.
Understand?
Yeah, there's a word that says park there, vendor park. It's that this park keeps jumping out at us. Yeah.
It is almost as if we are talking about a part of the approved township food truck vendor protocol for you, whatever the wording is, for use on public space, not just the marina, for use on township property. That is really what I think we're talking about.
Yep. So you're asking to remove the word part.
Well, to remove the word park and say, as part of the
Yeah.
approved township food vendor protocol for use of public space or for use of public property, something
That's
like that.
that 4A, the beginning paragraph,
It's
makes
in
it
there.
specific to township
Yeah.
property.
So all you're asking is to remove the word park. Who asked
Sure.
for that? Was it you? You're moving it? Are you
I'll second
seconding it? So moved by Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor of removing the word park? Carried.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another, if you wouldn't mind, number
Right.
F, since I sort of still have the floor. F, where it's signage. And are there current bylaws now that allow refreshment vehicles to post signs around the township on telephone poles and such, advertising their vehicle? Or for that matter, other businesses that are allowed to post signs on poles. I don't mean lost cat signs. I mean advertising their business on telephone poles around the township. Is there a bylaw now that allows it?
Robert.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I believe the sign bylaw, and I don't have it memorized or before me, would prohibit the posting of those type of signs on poles. I believe they would be permitted to have an A-frame sign on the location of their business to help potential customers identify it.
Okay, so when I see signs up for various businesses or food trucks, those are in violation of current bylaws. Okay, thank you.
Through
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
Henry. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, there are sign bylaws in place, and the A-frames are, last time I checked, were $30 a piece for your permit. Posting them everywhere else is not permitted as well. Even the A-frames can only be placed in certain areas, and there are numerous signs that are set out. Many of the businesses only put them out on weekends because they know that their sign will be taken.
Right.
And then they go and pick it up on Monday morning and bring it back. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So F doesn't need to be changed because there's already bylaws.
And it's really there to make sure people comply, not to allow.
Right, thank you.
Is there anything else in this section?
Sorry, I'm talking way too much this meeting. You're probably already tired of me. Jay, it says that the hours of operation, refreshment vehicles should not operate between the hours of 10 and 6 a.m. Are we in agreement that 6 a.m. is a good time to be able for those vehicles to start up? Does it sound early? I'm up at 5 every morning. It's not early by me, but does 6 a.m. seem early to others?
My guess is it would be there for for coffee to allow like somebody who was selling coffee. That may have been the rationale, but it's really up to council what time you want to permit it.
Councillor Koulis.
What's the noise bylaw time? Isn't it 5:30?
No, 7, I think.
7?
7.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking. 7 or 8, maybe. I'm just thinking. it
It's
should
actually
align-
earlier than that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Good
sure it's early because I've had a few complaints.
Hmm.
I'm just thinking if it should align or not.
To be earlier? No.
I'm just making sure we're crossing the T's, dotting the I's.
Yeah.
Is there pushback to do it 7 at least? I was at Isabel Morris Park this morning, and the amount of activity going on is amazing. And I do think that like they're up early. So if we go forward with this, there will be people available. But that being said, some of those people may not be interested in that early. So I do think timing is key here, but it would retain the location.
I think too, if they are using a generator that starting that up at 6 a.m, I could just hear the boaters now.
Yeah.
So maybe we should change that to 7 a.m. Even that's kind of early, but I agree if someone's offering coffee, it'd be
Yeah,
nice to be able to get one.
Just to note, so these would be permitted in a commercial zone. So in commercial zoning, we don't have any restrictions on the operating hours of businesses. So we're kind of putting an extra regulation on refreshment vehicles. And the only time the portable generator would be permitted is for a temporary event anyway. So anyway, just giving you that little bit of information. Again, it's up to council. You just need to tell us what time.
Councillor Koulis.
I'd honestly vote for 8.
I think 8 is late.
I'm just wondering if it is temporary too. I think we should have wording in there, connecting it to the other clauses above about the generator and special timing and special events timing.
Comments, Robert?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll take into consideration anything that council wants us to.
Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. But a compromise at 7. I think I always thought construction wasn't allowed to start before 7, but our clerk tells us it's 5:30 actually, and that draws more complaints from neighbors than something like this might. So, and really the vendor will determine their hours. If they're selling coffee, they might be open at 7, but if they're selling falafels, it might be 11. I think 7 a.m. is a reasonable time.
Are you moving that?
I'll move that
All
change to
right.
7.
Seconded by Councillor Koulis. All in favor? That is carried. Right. Is there anything else under temporary license? Going once. Refusal and revocation of license.
Well, if I could, Mayor Senes, number 5, special conditions.
Oh. Temporary license.
Right,
Back there.
temporary license. As it reads, it says the refreshment vehicle operator may apply for a temporary event license to operate a vehicle at an event at a designated location for a period of not more than 5 consecutive days. As written, the Jazz and Art Festival is 1 day, and somebody could set up in Isabel Morris Park for 5, or the Shamrock Festival for 5 days. I don't think that's what we want this to say? Is it, should it not? And I'm not going to try to rewrite it right now, but should it not be that shall apply for a temporary event license for the duration of the special event?
Robert?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the contemplation behind that is that there would be a special event could last a maximum of 5 consecutive days. Temporary licenses are actually issued on an as per day basis. So if an event was 3 days, we would issue them a 3-day license.
So that you're just complying with what the maximum would be in this.
That's correct.
Okay.
That said, I would want wording that explained that it is for the duration of the event.
Up to a maximum of 5 days.
Up to a maximum of 5 consecutive days. I don't want somebody, number of refreshment vehicles in Isabel Morris Park for 5 days. When the Jazz and Art Festival is 1 day, for example.
Are you moving?
And so I'm moving that the wording reflect that the temporary event license will be for the duration of the event.
Up to a maximum.
Up to a maximum of 5 days. I'll move that.
Second. Councillor Koulis, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to refusal and revocation of license. Anything? Yes.
Just a clarification question. When we were talking about the timing, because you're saying that's an extra layer that we're providing, can they fight us on that? Like for them starting at 7, can they fight us to start us before 7? I don't know if I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. In terms of challenging the bylaw?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody could challenge the bylaw, just like any other bylaw. There is a limitation period though on when somebody could come back and challenge this bylaw. And Janice, is it a year or 2 years? Yeah.
Okay. Just curious if like
Yeah.
we set 7 and they're like, we're coming for 6 and we're doing it anyway. It's just
Yeah. Well, that always happens. You put something in black and white and someone comes along and needs
Of course.
one change to it. Yeah.
all right. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any change to administration and enforcement? We've already talked about the bylaw enforcement officer. Is there any change to I think that's it, repeal? All right. So I believe you have what you need now for the bylaw.
If we could just have
Andy?
one more motion just to approve everything else, I guess, and then we would bring forward the final draft bylaw to the 23rd meeting.
All right, so we'll need a motion to approve. It will be by Councillor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That is carried. And I believe we have to approve Robert's report as well, don't we, or receive it?
We could just include that in the resolution,
Okay,
Madam Mayor.
sure. Sounds like a plan. All right, now we will hear from Megan LaRock, please.
Thank you, through you. So my report on the fundraising and revenue generation strategy and fundraising toolkit, you've received that, and it does speak to the background and a process for the development of both the strategy and the toolkit. I'm happy to answer any questions about the background, but I did want to focus on the 3 next steps. So the first one being the strategy, we wanted council to endorse it in principle, but that looking to staff to come back with an action plan to kind of give you more of a wholesome look at what the new rates, what any changing rates would look like, and how we're going to move the recommendations forward. That would come at a future meeting. The second step is the fundraising toolkit. We would ask that council endorse and approve the toolkit so that we can put that directly onto our website and provide it to our nonprofit organizations. I've actually had quite a few people ask, is it ready? Is it ready? So I think there's a lot of excitement around it. That also includes the inclusion of Grant Connect at the libraries as well. And then the third step would be that 100 hours of support from Strexer Harrop Consulting Group. They had split it up in their presentation where they would be able to help with that protocol for food and vendor operation of some sort in a location. So they're willing to provide some support to look at that and see how we could do that moving forward. Also providing workshops on grant writing and the Google My Business to help with both our nonprofit and business community. So just looking to council for that. But if you have any questions, feel free.
We've already made a change with regards to the wording of a food truck vendor protocol to remove the word park. So I think council will feel more comfortable with that gone. And I leave it to council. Do you have any questions with regards to this report and recommendations? Seeing none, through you, sorry, say through you. Deputy Mayor Black.
Through you, Mayor.
Yes.
So the 100 hours of additional consulting work for Director Harrop, was that part of the Trillium grant, or will that be, and if it isn't, was it budgeted for?
Yeah, it was actually part of their package that they submitted through the RFP. So that was kind of an additional bonus that we saw great value in. So that's actually all included.
Well, that's excellent. Just to follow up, with regards to fees, I'm always interested to see the rationale and the math around the fees and, you know, comparison to other municipalities. And I think they did a good job on finding comparable municipalities. But the challenge with that is if you're at the bottom and you move to the middle, now there's a new bottom, which moves to the middle, which moves to the bottom, which moves to the middle. It's self-perpetuating. And that's what happens with user fees. I grew up in a large family, 6 other siblings, and back in those days, recreation was provided by the municipality. Sports clubs, things like that, were part of municipal responsibility. And if it certainly wasn't for that, I wouldn't have played a lot of sports with 7 kids in the household. So I'm always cognizant of raising those rates and what that does to participation. Talking to some fellow old timer slow pitchers this morning, our league is getting smaller and smaller each year because younger people aren't playing baseball anymore and slow pitch and fastball. And I think part of that has to do with cost for young families. So I'm always concerned when I see those fees going up. Particularly with the math works for me. It's, you know, it's always gonna increase when you do that kind of review. So anyways, you know, I support the recommendations, all 3 of them at this point, but just for staff to keep that top of mind when we're talking about increasing fees for participation, particularly in children's sports.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking for someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And now move on to Mike Richardson, budget amendment for the Olympia Ice Resurfacer maintenance. Mike.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I won't speak much or speak very long to this because I think it's fairly self-explanatory. However, if there are any questions, I can certainly answer them. We have had 2 Olympia or ice resurfacers at each of the arenas, replacing them about 10 to 11 years or 6,000 to 7,000 run hours. So one of them is getting to its age. We had deferred replacing it because we wanted to look at the possibility of electric and at some other options. And we thought with the reduced hours over COVID that we might get an extra year out of it, but a water bottle through the auger and it's not running quite as well as we like it. So they both are at Waterloo right now because we were able to take advantage of an opportunity of them coming through with an empty load and get them both there. So we saved it's a significant amount to float them to Waterloo. So we've saved on that. We do need to get some work done, but we'd like to get them both in the best shape they can be so that we can maximize the years on the one in Lakefield and explore further the option of electric because more and more arenas are moving that way. We just don't necessarily want to be at the very front of the pack because sometimes you lessons learned are really important. And even Fenelon Falls has one now, and we can talk to them to see what it's like after 2 years, 3 years. If there's any questions, I'm certainly available to answer.
All right. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I need someone to move the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That is carried. Mike, you're up again.
I'm gonna match John here, say.
Can have the microphone.
Through you, Madam Mayor. This one is a very small request to do a little bit of work when we received $407,000 from the province to do this project. But we have found after last year being unsuccessful at tendering out the painting job based on what we had, we reduced the scope, came back to council with a recommendation of slightly reduced scope, certainly on the basketball side of things. It's not unusual for a basketball court to only have lines in the middle. We were trying to go with what we had previously. So we are a little bit short. Both these two companies can start as soon as weather allows and as soon as we finish the post install, which meant asphalt had to be running. So there's a few weeks worth of work left to do, but for the small request from development charges, we would like to do those. We'll obviously have the painting done with the modified scope, and then adding a barrier, which was highly recommended by pickleball, just because it keeps play going and makes it a little safer. So if there's any questions, I'm certainly here to answer.
I have to tell you that people stop their car and ask me, when can they start playing pickleball?
I can guarantee you it's never going to be soon enough, but in fairness, they can play. We have portable nets. They can play whenever they want right now.
Okay.
They would just have to put down chalk or frog tape to or masking tape to put the lines down. But we do it all. So those that are absolutely adamant, especially if they do it on the basketball court when it's not being used, it's very, very simple. So the plan is to have the nets at the two sites this weekend because people can, and this is their term, dink around as much as they want. That is the term. So.
Okay. But when will the actual lining be done? Like, when can they start playing?
The first step is to get this approved, then I can.
Oh, right,
confirm that
yeah.
We've got a company waiting with bated breath to find out what the answer from council is. And then we can certainly update, but we have a June 13th opening, so it'll be long before that.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking for someone to approve move the recommendation. Councillor Boyko, seconded by Councillor Henry, all in favor. It's carried. Thank you. Mike.
Again,
Got trifecta today.
Yeah, again, through you, Madam Mayor. We've been finally getting decent weather for the campground, which has allowed us to really start things off well. The Orca has had their site super on site for a couple of weeks throughout the week. We will be opening this weekend. So it's an exciting time for those returning. And this is a start of some of the work that we knew we'd be having to do. And we weren't sure exactly how much we would be able to do or we would need to do until we got there on a regular basis. So these items would include the initial work, including signposts or the site posts, sorry. There was some work in the camp office and in the washrooms. And then obviously some electrical upgrades and replacement of poles. And finally, something that was in the initial package and agreement with Orca was gate controls being changed over to something a little more modern. So that summarizes the initial work. And then when we add in the purchase of the kayaks, we're working through Paluski Boats, and they've offering us a very good rental price to purchase through the rental program. And Orca is ready to go to offer a similar rental program that they do at Beavermead. So again, here if there's any questions.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanis. Mike, thank you for this. Just curious, we're dipping back into the budget a couple of times here for you. Can we put a food truck over there with those canoe rentals?
Funny enough that the one place we have been very successful on a regular basis is the Lakefield Beach. The Lions have brought their food truck there 4 or 5 times in the last couple of years and done very well. Long weekends, they like it, and I think it speaks to what Councillor Boyko's concerns were short term, very much for a specific time, and helping a good cause without being on the doorstep of another business. So, yep. I thought you soldiers.
There you go. Did you, Councillor Boyko?
Thank you, Mike. The rental equipment, it's clearly stated that this will be paid for as the township's share of operational revenues, which is terrific. The other expenditures that are listed, the 25,500 for lighting, electrical, camp washroom, as an offices, the site post numbering, the gate control that you talked about, will these expenditures also be paid for out of the township's share of the operating revenue?
Through you, yes, that is the intent. I think the reason that was handled specifically for
no
rentals is because it was going to come out of the rental.
Yeah, so the rental equipment is going to come out of the rental revenues that we receive.
Right.
The other items would be coming out of the campground reserve.
Campground reserve.
Yeah.
Right. So I just wanted to be sure that the Selwyn ratepayers will not be on the hook for the 25,500 or any of the other expenditures that will be going into it. I just wanted to be certain. Thank you. The second follow-up, do we have an update, Mike, or maybe I've missed it on the docks, the purchase and installation of the new docks?
So we have purchased, and the installation was planned for this week. It still is, as long as TSW we're having, it's a little bit longer. It's been a month and a half since we put our TSW permit in.
Right.
And I'm supposed to hear tomorrow exactly what we've been waiting at least 4 of those weeks with everything in, all paid, and being told that we would hear anytime.
Right.
So the new supplier is or the supplier is ready and wanted to put them in last week, but we clearly can't do that without having a permit.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because that will be one of the first things the campers see when they arrive. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Deputy Mayor Blatt.
Thank you, through Mayor Sanis. Just one quick question. They'll have a POS system there for payments at the Lakefield campground.
Through you, Madam Mayor, they do right now. So that as of Monday, they had their internet up and going and brought that to the camp office.
Now, is that Orca owned? Are they paying for that, or is that something we can share in the township as one of the recommendations? Getting POS in Makerspace and places like that. Could we tag into that?
This is something they brought through their campground system because it's all part of I think it's called Camp Ontario or Ontario Camp Association that they do, but
so it's not just a straight bank system.
That question hasn't been asked, but it certainly could be. We can find out more about it and talk with our finance to see if it is something that would ever be married together. But
yeah, if we're already paying a fee for the service, maybe we can expand that. So that's just one question. Just a quick follow up to rentals. I know the Lakefield Marina is going to have their entrance improved, I think, as part of the project this year. We're getting boats in the water, like canoes and that sort of thing, that ramping.
The launch
area. And are we going to offer rentals from the marina at that point as well?
Angie?
We've applied for a grant, Megan. Yeah, maybe you can give an update.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've actually applied for the Inclusive Communities Fund to have that section in Isabel Morris Park, the canoe launch, to have I believe it's called an easy launch. So it's not a fully accessible dock, but it is much more accessible.
Okay.
And then as part of that application, we also applied for a docking system at the Lakefield Beach which would be fully accessible. So still waiting to hear on that one though.
At Lakefield Beach though, but do we do rentals at the Lakefield Marina or the Innismore Waterfront Park or that sort of thing right now?
No, that would have been part of the vendor offering.
Right.
So we'll include that in the protocol.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No more questions. I need someone to move the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Black, Councillor Kulik, all in favor? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Who's going to be presenting for Lane?
I can
All right.
speak to Lane's report for sure.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Janice.
So as council may be aware, the next component of our asset management plan is due for completion as of July 2024. That plan will have to cover all of our assets. Currently, we've just covered what's considered the core assets. So roads, bridges, culverts, water, sewer, wastewater, same thing. There's one more, storm. So now we need to move on and get our plan updated with the rest of our facilities, including all the different components of those facilities, structure, HVAC, finishing, roofing, all detailed out. Through the county's recent work that they did, we were able to work a little bit with Ron Odd, the architect that they used to do a bit of a facility review for them. And certainly we're impressed with his approach. He's familiar with the area, familiar with some of our buildings because of his previous work. So we did reach out and ask Ron for a proposal to undertake the review of the township facilities as well, which he did submit. Ron would as the principal of the firm, he would be the team lead for our project, and he would coordinate all of the disciplines required to come in and do the reviews of each of our facilities, research costs for replacement and maintenance and upgrades, and compile a full database and full spreadsheets for each of our facilities that then would allow us to incorporate those into our asset management plan, eventually come up with the maintenance plan. And ultimately, I believe it's in 2025, we have to come forward with our proposed service and level of service moving forward and a funding strategy for all of those components. So what we're looking for is approval from council to allow us to enter that contract with Ron Odd Architects to complete that work.
All right. I have a question first from Councillor Boyko. Oh, all right. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you through your Mayor Sennis. What was the budgeted amount for this line? There was a budget line for this.
This would be in addition to the budget. We didn't have this included in the budget, and it would be funded through the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. That's funding that we've received for a number of years. I believe we received about 300 and some thousand in, did look up 358,000 approximately in 2023. And we have used that funding to support our asset management reporting and projects since we've been receiving it. So we have that funding available to support this project.
Thank you.
And did you have your hand up, Councillor Boyko? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, I need someone to move the report. Councillor Boyko is moving it, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We have consent items. Is there anything that anyone wants pulled? Seeing none, I need someone to move the consent items. Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any other new and unfinished business? Seeing none, we will go to the bylaws. So we have 2023-031 authorizing a funding agreement, Earth Day Canada, for the Charged for Change Program 2023-032. Appoint Alicia Bauer as Livestock Valuer and repeal bylaw 2014-003. Appointing John Allen and Andy Bollering. 2023-033. Appoint the Heritage Committee appointments. James Forrester, Stephen Gavard, Valerie Kush, Tom McAllister, and Terry McQuitty, and to repeal bylaw 2019-025 and 2021-051. 2023-034, we have a zoning bylaw, removal of holding of 26 Edward Street, C0323. And 2023-035, authorizing asset management proposal facilities. Ron A. Odd is the architect. Can I have someone to move those? Councillor Boyko, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Someone to approve the confirming bylaw 2023-036. Councillor Henry. Seconded by Councillor Koulis. All in favor? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Henry. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.